Hi guys, and welcome back to the Actors Waiting Room podcast. And we are in a brand new studio, which is very, very exciting. Yeah, I've had a couple of months off, which has been lovely to enjoy the summer. So we're back. This week we're going to be talking about staying creative. I think this is one of the hardest things, alongside rejection, keeping yourself motivated, creatively full, and just ready to go in this weird sort of beautiful industry, if I can call it that. But yeah, and I think the creativity side, I feel like it's lacking a bit because, well, I think personally with myself as well, but the more and more people I speak to at the moment, I think we're finding it hard to, because the industry seems a bit quiet at the moment. The amount of guests that I've had on recently where they've been like, yeah, it's really, really quiet at the moment, and we're kind of having to do, lots of extra creative jobs on the side. Hence, I'm doing a podcast, but people are starting to write more, or, start maybe going into directing, or just trying to fulfill another creative avenue. Maybe it's photography, maybe it's, videography, or whatever it is. But there's a lot of people out there, I think, that are finding it a little bit quiet at the moment. And so I thought for this first episode to introduce myself into a whole new studio, which is very, very exciting. I thought we would talk about, staying creative in this quiet time. So I have written loads of points on my phone, as I usually do, and we're just going to go through them like one by one. There's actually quite a lot on here. I actually planned this episode, at least 4 months ago, and it was quite nice to look back at my thoughts at the time and go, oh wow, she did have quite a lot of different thoughts there, and I've added to them and changed them and stuff. So the first one I have is, artist dates, which, I have mentioned before on the podcast a little while ago now. So if you've been listening from the beginning, you'll probably know what an artist date is. But there is an amazing book called The Artist Way. I wish I brought it with me, actually. I didn't bring it here to the studio. Now that I no longer film in my living room, I have to bring so much more stuff here, and I actually forgot it. But obviously it's a book. It's by Julia Cameron, I want to say, and if it's not, I will correct myself and put it in the footnotes, but I will link it in the footnotes. And I think a lot of people have already heard of The Artist Way, particularly, if you've been in the industry for a little while. But it's a really great book, or like it's been floating in your atmosphere, but you've thought, I've not picked it up yet. It is 100% worth it. I will admit, though, it's a 12-week program that you do, and I would say it's quite intense. Like, at the start of the book, she explains that, you need to be dedicated for these 12 weeks, and you're just kind of fooling yourself if you don't have the time to do all the tasks and stuff. But I don't know what Julia thinks I have to do in my spare time, but I don't have all this time for all of her tasks. And that's not to put you off it. It just means that if you're going to start it, there's a lot to do in that. And I'm not sure, it is obviously doable, but they're if you're balancing multiple jobs like a normal actor does, and they're quite late, they run into the evenings, you're auditioning and you're busy in that lot, it might be a bit difficult to start. But we are talking about sparking our creativity again if we're quiet. So yeah, if you have a quiet moment or a stage at the moment and you're kind of wanting to get back into this sort of creative sphere, if you want to say, I think it's really worth it. I will admit now, I started it 2 years ago now, and I got to week 8, and then I didn't finish it. So that's how honest I'm being about it, because I don't know why I'd finished it, or I didn't finish it. Sorry, I think maybe life just got in the way, but I am determined to finish it now. So I'm going to start it soon, probably this autumn actually, and I'm going to start it. And then we can do, probably what would be quite nice is we could do some little catch-ups if people want to do it alongside me, or we want to get a group together and make each other accountable. I'm all for that. We could give that a go, because obviously there's quite a lot of tasks in it. So anyway, it's a 12-week program. And it has multiple tasks for you to do, and each chapter you do each week. So obviously it's a 12-week program, lasts for 12 weeks, there are 12 chapters. So yeah, and there's a part of it that stuff happens, it happens very early on, where she tells you about morning pages and she tells you about artist dates. So the artist dates are basically anywhere you can take yourself off for at least an hour. It can be longer, but I think it has to be about an hour long, of a task that you want to do on your own. And you have to do it on your own. You can't be like, I'm going to go meet a friend and we're going to go to an art gallery. It means you're going to go to the art gallery and you're going to spend at least an hour there. If you stay there for longer, that's great. But that is kind of the main deal of it. And I think the first time I started doing artist dates, I was really nervous. Like, there's not a lot of places where I go on my own for, my own entertainment or for whatever I want to do. And it was quite a freeing thing, but it was also quite like a scary thing to be like, I'm going to go to an art gallery on my own and look around. And to some people, you might be like, what is she so afraid of? But there are certain things that you probably want to do that you might not get someone else to come and do with you. So like, I went to the cinema and stuff on my own, if there's a film that I wanted to go see. And it was slowly you build up this sense of confidence, but you also, I think, indulge yourself in the things that you really want to do, the things that you're really interested in. And you do it weekly, by the way. You have to do it weekly. So it's a really good idea. So you can go to art galleries, cinemas, literally anywhere you want to go. I don't know, pottery painting you could do. I mean, there's loads of things in London. It depends where you are. But have a look around you to see if there are any, I don't know, like arts and crafts stuff or things like that you kind of are interested in doing, and then possibly go from there. The other thing that she mentions is the morning pages, which is essentially you write down for 3 pages every day anything you want, and you do have to do it every day, so that keeps you like accountable. And you do it in the morning. You do it it's the first thing that you do every morning before you do anything else. So I would get up in the morning, make myself a coffee, and then I would sit down and I'd write 3 pages worth. To start with, it's a little bit like clunky, and then you get to a phase where you're like, I don't really have anything else to write anymore, so you have to think of things to write, and then slowly it gets easier and easier, and you can do it very quickly in the morning. But obviously it's a big task to do straight away, but I think that's worth it. And slowly, eventually, it gets all the crap out of your head in the morning before you then go on to do anything else. So I would say that was really, really beneficial, and the whole book is really beneficial. Obviously, if you get further than 8 weeks, and you've done better than me, but I'm going to try this autumn to do the full 12 weeks. But there's loads of things in there that actually I'm not going to spoil it. So yeah, that's definitely the first one, and 100% that's the most motivated, creative I've ever felt during a project ever. Of my own doing, rather than going off and acting, because that will always do the trick. But yeah, that was definitely something that really sparked my creativity and just kept me going, and actually made me really think about the type of things that I want to make, which I've never really done before. I just always thought, yeah, I'm an actor and I'm going to go do what anyone would cast me in, which is obviously the main aim of the game, isn't it? We all will just go off and be casted in anything that someone would hire us for. But it's quite nice to understand what your own taste is like, I guess. So that was like item number 1. I am also going to be drinking during this, because yeah, we've got what have we got today? We've got a little grape and elderflower fizzy Pret drink, which is really nice. I'm not sponsored by Pret. If you'd like to be sponsored and be in the podcast, yeah, just let us know. Sorry if you don't like drinking sounds, but I'm thirsty. So the next one is taking time out from acting, which I should have phrased this much better in my notes, but I think it basically means is like taking time away from thinking about it, pursuing it. I don't know, just all of these things. Like, it's quite weird to say to an actor, try not to think about acting, or any creative really, like try not to think about your creative thing or venture that you're doing, because the majority of us are unemployed and we're not doing it anyway. But it doesn't mean that you're not still thinking about it. And I think taking time away, or giving your brain a rest from thinking, what can I do next, or what's the next step, or what acting class am I going to go to, what casting director am I going to email, all of these different things that help you basically achieve our goal every day. we're very busy people. And I think a lot of people go, well, because they're unemployed, they're not very busy. But actually behind the scenes, people don't really realize that, you are going to acting classes. You're constantly thinking about how you can push your career forward because it's not happening yet, or because it's not a continuous thing, because you do one job and then you have a break for a bit and then you do another job if you're lucky. People seem to think that in that downtime it's all like, oh well, you can go off and have a laugh. Well, it's not. Like, to me, getting an acting job and actually being on the acting job, that's kind of a holiday for me. And I noticed when I did a play last year, I think, or no, a couple of years ago now, it was like the first time when I've been casted in something where I just fully relaxed. I got casted in this like Shakespeare show for like 2 weeks, and it was like really, really great fun. Well, actually, no, I think the performances were 2 weeks and then we were in rehearsals for about a month. And like, I just remember feeling so, like zen and like relieved, because I was doing the thing that I'd set out. And so I actually didn't need to worry about anything else. I just needed to worry about knowing my lines. And, obviously that's just like the basics, isn't it? And obviously like acting, but just actually doing the job and just basically getting up every day and going to a rehearsal or knowing that you've got a show that day was just so great. And then my days off were me actually doing whatever I wanted to do, because I didn't have this thing looming over me going, you really should email that person, or you really should read that acting book, or you should really go to an acting class. Like, you don't have all that nipping at you 24/7. And so I do think a part of being creatively full and stimulated is giving your brain a rest from all of this. Now, that's easier said than done. But I do think, like, if you can, I don't know, like if you can, I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of like going for walks outside. I love walking, reading. I don't know, like I found reading really useful recently, and like reading stuff that's not acting focused, just like a random story. So, I mean, oh God, all the girlies are going to know, but I've been reading Akatar, Fourth Wing. I've just started the Throne of Glass series, which is good so far. I'm on like the third book, and like it's good, but it's not ticking along into the main story yet. But I just know that it's going to be an absolute god tier series. But anyway, that's like a completely different thing, and people who haven't read these fantasy books are probably going to be like, what the hell is she talking about? But those types of books, or books of a similar genre, are really great for just switching out the rest of the world. And like, it's given my brain a rest from actually thinking, what can I do now? Because even when I watch films, TV shows, I'm constantly now looking at the acting, or I pause it and go, that would make a great monologue, and I write down the time of, the timestamp of where it is, so I can go back and get the monologue later if I need it for a show reel, or like whatever. But you're constantly thinking in these situations of like, how can it help your career? And I think that's really hard to switch off, like really, really hard. And so like reading, or going to see family, or going to see friends that maybe aren't possibly in your industry, try and give your brain a rest. Is it like, some people prefer it's cleaning. I mean, I like a tidy home, but I'm not sure if cleaning is going to make me switch off. But there's lots of different things, and I think try and think of something that's going to work for you to keep your mind switched off for a bit, because the more it whirls and whirls away, it's going to be more difficult for creative ideas to come. And I do think this. I mean, I've started writing recently, and one of the things I have noticed is that like I will be able to write for a really, really long time, and then I basically get to a point where I'm like, oh, I don't know how to finish that, or I don't know how it's going to link. And I'm one of those people who are kind of all or nothing, which is not a great trait to have when you're an actor. But I'm one of those people that goes like, well, I need to finish the whole episode in one go because I need to see how it would look, or or if I was writing like a play or something, I'd need to finish it all. But I'm currently writing 4 episodes at a time at the moment. But you look at it and I go, but no, I actually physically can't finish it because I don't have any more ideas yet, and everything that I put out on the page is just a bit shit. So you have to walk away from it. And I've noticed that like you put the writing or whatever you're doing in the drawer for like 2 weeks, and then you pull it back out, and then you go over it again, and then you've got more ideas again. And I think if that's the same for writing, like, why can't that be the same for acting or for your career in general? Because that creativity is going to have to turn off at some point in order to recharge to do the next thing. So giving your brain a rest and slowing down, it's so important to just slow down, because we're running at 1,000 miles per hour all the time. Give yourself some time. You have time. I can tell you now, at the age of 28, you have time. You definitely have time to just keep, just still enjoying your life. Like, don't get so wrapped up in just, I need to be in a Netflix show, I need to be at the National Theatre, I need to be doing that. Hilariously, I'm doing an acting podcast and I'm trying to find out those things, but I still have time away. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, nobody's saying you need to give up on your goal. You just need to slow down a bit. And also, when the industry is a little bit quiet at the moment, because it is, take some relief in that, to go that, it's not your fault that these things aren't happening. Like, it's just the way that the industry is at the moment, and it's also just the way that the industry works in general. So yeah, give yourself a break, and indulge yourself. I think that's what it's good about the Artist Way, is that when you go on these artist dates, you indulge in like what you want to do. It's not what you should do, it's what you would quite like to go and do. And it's all about that, turning your brain off, or putting your brain or pointing your brain in a different direction, away from something else, so that you then have different ideas and you go, oh, I didn't really think about that. And then you can come back to your other idea and go, oh, and I now know how to solve it. And sometimes these things can take weeks. I mean, I've been lucky enough to speak to some writers recently, which will be coming on later in the season. And they're all about that. They go, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish a whole episode or, film script just like that. It takes so much time to build these great ideas. And, it's the same thing for if you're an actor. It's going to take you a while to build all of this extra stuff. It's not really like a specific thing, but it's all this stuff, like the confidence to go into audition rooms, the ability to pick up lines really quickly, your posture, like when you're on stage, your breathing, all of this takes time, and it's not just going to happen overnight. And so in order to do that, you need to rest. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but you read between the lines. Okay. My next one is experiencing life. I feel like we have just kind of touched on that. Experiencing life is obviously a massive benefit for an actor. It's a massive, I rephrase that. It's a massive benefit for any creative. Just because if you're a writer, if you're a director, if you're an actor, hell, if you're a casting director, you need all these little life experiences to help you do your job. You always do, like, particularly if you're a creative. Like, there are so many things that happen to each individual person to make them who they are. That's how characters are built. And so the more you can, you always see it, don't you? Like, let's think of an example, like Maggie Smith. Okay. Like, I never really watched Maggie Smith when she was, younger. I wasn't around then, but also I didn't really go back and watch any of Maggie Smith's like earlier stuff. I mean, I had watched the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and she's great in that, but she's so young in that. And the most of her audience, or my generation, kind of know her from like Harry Potter, playing Professor McGonagall, right? And you see her in other things like Lady in the Van and all of her other projects, and you're like, God, she's so great. Like, she's fantastic. Same with Judi Dench. You just think, God, she's so good. Same with Emma Thompson. Like, you look at them and they go, it's so real. Like, I mean, everyone always comments on it. One of my favorite ever scenes in the whole of film history, which people are going to laugh at so much, is Emma Thompson in Love Actually, when she's crying in her bedroom over the fact that, Alan Rickman's character has cheated on her. And it feels so real. And there's so many people that comment on it all the time, because you just go, God, that's exactly what it feels like. And it's why we watch films. It's why we watch TV, to connect with other parts and other human lives, and to live in other people's shoes for a minute. And like, the more life experience you have, the better you're going to be able to play all these things. So take some relief in that as well, is that you do have time to build up all of these experiences. But also, if you're just going to be so focused on your creative goal, then how are you going to basically start experiencing life? Don't shut out that part of your life because and put it on hold because you're waiting for your next big thing. Like, don't wait. Like, go and experience things, because I can promise you that it will help your creativity massively. There will always be something. Always. It's like every time you go on a different acting job and you learn something new and you collect all your little bits of knowledge and you keep it together. It's the same things with life. Like, even if horrible things happen in your life, there's always a way to be like, well, there's another guest actually who said there's blessing in the breaking. Absolutely is. Like, even if unfortunate things happen in your life, you now have another connection to another part of life that you didn't have before. And they're all so needed with your creativity massively. Okay. So next one is watching. I've put watching a shitload of TV and film. Hell yeah. Go watch a shitload of TV and film. So after you've done your little brain rest for like a couple, try and do like an hour a day, or you set the goal of how much brain rest you're going to need. I try and switch my brain off in the evenings now. I do like most of my work in the day, because I'm lucky enough not to have to work in hospitality and theatre jobs anymore that obviously go quite late, which I appreciate a lot of this audience might have. But set a cut-off time, usually I do anyway, for when I'm going to be like, nope, this is when I'm going to open my fantasy books, or whatever you're interested in that's going to help you turn off. Try and do it daily. It will massively help you out. So once you've had your little brain rest, or maybe watching film and TV is your brain rest. It depends on the type of person that you are. But watch a shit load of TV and film. There's so many great things out there, and I think we get very focused on looking at just the new releases. I definitely do. I get a bit overwhelmed by all the many subscription services that I have. I have Netflix. I think I have Prime. I have Apple TV, Now TV, and Disney. That's too many for like one person. I just think it's too. Well, I share it with my partner, but it's too much and it's very overwhelming. But watch different things that you probably wouldn't watch before. So me and my friends at the moment, we decided that we keep watching the same stuff. Or like I would say like, have you watched this film? And then my friend would be like, no, I've not seen that. And I'd be like, how have you not seen that? And then she'd do the same to me, and I'd be like, no, I haven't seen that. And so building up a different sort of genre or different types of films that you probably wouldn't go and see or watch at home, it's probably a really good idea. So yeah, as I said, it's not really a film club, but there are film clubs, I suppose, that you could join. It's not really a film club, but we basically give each of the there's three of us, we give each of the 5 recommendations of their top films of multiple genres. So it has to be like, there has to be a comedy in there has to be a thriller, there has to be like a life-affirming, there has to be like a mixture of genres anyway. So it's not just either, because my lists are always a bit doom and gloom. I love a sad story, so it'd be a bit depressing if I just made them watch 5 really depressing films. But yeah, so we do that and we swap it and we do it each month. And so we give the task of watching 5 films, and we switch it each month, and then we talk about it in our little group chat, and we don't like get together. But I think that was a really good idea. And I think if you want to do that, it's great, because I have a friend who was actually on the podcast not too long ago. I'm going to name her. Shout out to Brittany. She's great. She gave me a load of like film recommendations that I wouldn't probably never pick for myself at all. One of them being The Assessment, which if you've seen that, is really great. But it's also something that I would never pick for myself, because it's a bit like, it's just a bit weird. But Brittany won't mind me saying this. She has a bit of a weird, like, she doesn't have a weird film taste. She likes things that are just, I don't know, maybe a bit more abstract, or have a very unique, they're just not your straightforward films. Do you know what I mean? And like, she said, yeah, recommended me that one. She recommended me Annihilation, which is quite an old film now with Natalie Portman in. which was also, again, really, really great. And I definitely wouldn't have recommended myself to go and watch that. Do you know what I mean? Or I wouldn't have like told myself to go watch that. So yeah, and it's actually sparked a new creative side. And I've gone, oh, you know, maybe, you know, acting can be done like this or it can be done like that. And I think that's really crucial, like watching lots of different things, multiple genres. I mean, I can't watch too many horror. I say this all now and I can't but I do watch a bit of horror, but I don't watch like major horror just because I'm I can't cope with it. But I think watching multiple genres and multiple different films, just seeing how they're like shot as well is really interesting, like, or what lights people have used. And slowly this way you can start to either broaden your taste, which is always a great thing as a creative, or you can now start to identify what you do and don't like, and your taste is an ongoing thing and it's very subjective, and obviously it will chop and change as you get older, but it's really interesting to see what you actually like. And like I made myself write down what types of films I usually go to and what do I like. And yeah, there's similarities between, I told you I quite like sad or naturalistic stories that I can connect to as a viewer. I quite like stuff like that, like The Pursuit. I mean, I can't connect to The Pursuit of Happiness, but it's more of a naturalistic film than say like Annihilation, which is sci-fi, or, you know, that type of thing. And but then I was like, oh, but I really like Interstellar, and that's so far removed. That's about outer space, and why do I like that? And, you know, sometimes it's even down to not necessarily the acting performances, but how it's shot and the color schemes that they use. So you can identify kind of like what films you like, usually by the grade of film that they put on the film, really. So that's always interesting to see what editing choices have been made. Like, I also quite like choppy, fast-paced stuff. Like, This Is Going to Hurt is very quick. The Bear is very quick. So I quite like that type of editing. And so that's always a really interesting thing to look out for when you're, you know, when you're deciding what your taste is and broadening your creativity, really. Okay. Yeah, going against the 5 things to do a day rule. Has anyone had that? Like, when was it? When I was about 24. Yeah, I'd say I was about 20. No. I think I was even younger. Maybe I was like 22 or 23. My agent at the time was meeting us for little one-to-ones, as most agencies do, just as like a little catch-up. And I went to go meet her in, is it Soho House? First time I'd ever been to Soho House as well. Very swanky, very lovely. And so we went up there and we had a cup of tea and things like that. And there was another actor there that was just sort of finishing their one-to-one. And then they stayed for a little bit longer. And I said, oh yeah, I'd love to chat to you as well. And so we were having sort of like this 3-way chat. And this one actor said, someone told me to always try and do 5 things for your career every day. Wait, that's a lot. And when I thought that, I thought, oh, 5 things, I could do 5 things. Some days you can, like some days you absolutely can. And those days are really great when you have all the motivation and the productivity, I think, to go with it. But most of the time in everyday life, being realistic, you can't do 5 things for your career a day whilst also working multiple jobs and all of the things that you do in your day as an actor. And yeah, that was one that sort of hit me as like, actually that would hinder my creativity, I think, because I think I would just be burning myself out. And so trying to do the 2 or the 3 things and taking it slow, and like, you can be very generous with what these things are. So I count exercise as one of my 5 things to do today for my career. I also think of brain rest as one of my 5 things to do per day. And I know people might be like, oh, that's a bit of a cop-out. But I'm sorry, but it all leads to this whole creative sphere that you're trying to pursue every day, because, you know, creativity, it burns out, as we all know, and the motivation is not always there. And if you're trying to do 5 things every day to do it towards your career, to help you with your career, I think it's just going to burn you out and sort of ruin that creative streak that's kind of in you. And that's not to say be a bit lazier. You can still have discipline, but I think 3 is more than enough. And also per day, do people understand how busy people's lives are? There's no way I could do 5 per day. Sometimes I only do 1, sometimes I do none. So it really is it's your own wheelhouse. Like it's completely up to you. But I remember receiving that at the age of like I said, 22, 23, and thinking, right, that's what I need to do, because you're very hungry for it at that age when you've just graduated, and like you don't think that you can slow down, because kind of everybody's telling you that you can't, and there's this illusion of everyone trying to get to their goal or seeing them get to their goal faster than you, and it's just not like that. You know, there's a really great, I mean, everybody's heard of Mel Robbins, you know, like the let them theory. Mel Robbins obviously has her own podcast, and I listened to one of her episodes of like, I can't remember what it's called. Again, I'm going to put it in the footnotes. It's something to do with about, you know, feeling behind in your 20s. And she explains like the whole theory of why we think that we're behind in our lives when we're actually not. And she used a lot of like scientific analysis from like Harvard, I don't know, and other universities that she uses. And it's really, really beneficial to see some stats that go with what she's saying. So I'll link that as well in the footnotes as well, because I think that was really useful. My next one is, so this is kind of more of a doing task, I suppose. Again, this was something that I haven't done yet, but I was going to go do with my friends as well, is, you know how acting classes are obviously great and needed from time to time, but they're expensive, right? They are expensive. And sometimes it's not necessarily like the acting class that you need. It's just feeling like other things, like feeling comfortable in front of a camera, like what I'm doing right now. Or it's line learning, or there's just like something that you struggle with. Like for me, it also is line learning. I'm terrible at learning lines, but once they're in, but it just takes me a little bit longer, I think, than most people. But yeah, there's that. And so what I kind of was going to do with my friends was basically just set up our phone as if it's a self-tape setup and just record some self-tapes with lots of random scripts. And the BBC, on the BBC website, they do, there's the Writing BBC group on the website, and they have obviously all of their BBC written scripts that are already published, that are already out. They don't have like everything from, say, like Fleabag or This Is Going to Hurt, but they do have most shows on there. And I thought it was a really good idea to just pick one script at a time. Doesn't really matter if it's not quite your casting, but just getting into the flow of learning lines, putting together a character last minute, or not last minute, but, you know, smaller amounts of time, and filming it with your friends when they're behind the camera and seeing how that works. And it's, you know, I think that's a really useful thing to do, is to constantly keep practicing, but to do it with different scripts that perhaps you wouldn't ever think of doing yourself. And sometimes, you know, there's a reason why you don't do those scripts, because it's you know, the part is a 50-year-old man and I wouldn't be playing that. But like, there's something in trying out new things and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone just a little bit. And also there's no harm in getting better at having a camera or somebody there watching you perform all the time, because once you've graduated from drama school, that confidence slips a lot. I can tell you that firsthand. And going to classes is quite intimidating. And so having to do it in a safe space where you can explore lots of things and building that confidence up gently. You can still go to classes. I still advise you to go to classes. They're great. But also it saves you that 35 to 40 pounds weekly that some people do when they go to a class. And that's quite a lot of money adding up. So you could definitely do the same just at home with your friends, and that would definitely keep you productive. And also having a person doing it with you, especially like I said with the film thing, you know, when I do, you know, when I said with my friends that we recommend each other films, having somebody there to keep you accountable for all these things really, really does help. I always advise that as well. If you're like writing something, try and find a writing partner. I found a writing partner at the moment, She's fantastic, and it definitely keeps me way more on the ball than I think I would on my own. Definitely, because like even with this podcast, sometimes it's really hard to like just keep it up each week, or just keep filming and keep thinking of new ideas and doing it on your own. So having that accountability partner, I think, is really, really useful. Let's see, I've still got loads more, but I just think they're all a bit of the same vein. Okay, let's finish with this one. Oh, it's quite deep actually, but anyway. Fear of being seen. Even as I say it now, it's definitely me. There is something in like, well, yeah, the fear of being seen. Like, you could want a goal as much as you want, but some people actually hide away from actually getting it. So I think I am actually one of those people. I think I try really hard to get to the main goal, but then once the goal's in there, I kind of self-sabotage myself a little bit. And that could happen at any point of the journey, like in an audition room, or doubting yourself when you're, I don't know, doubting yourself, or all these different things. I think you get very afraid of being seen and actually achieving that thing, and sometimes that can be your blocker in terms of your creativity, and also just you achieving your goal in general, and your motivation, I think, because sometimes you can get very close to something and then you just go, oh, I don't think I can do it, and you pull out, or you don't put everything that you're needed into it. And I think having confidence in this industry, which I think to anybody who's not an actor, who's listening, that's not necessarily a creative, nobody's confident, I don't think, in this industry. No one's there's some people that are very overly confident, but I think the majority of us aren't. And we're very good at obviously acting and just putting on a bit of a front of being like, yeah, I can do that, or yeah, of course, whatever. And because it's all part of the little facade that we all put on, isn't it? Because we're not supposed to be seen as shying away from a camera because we want to act, but it is still very intimidating to do all these things. So I think a way to help yourself maybe is trying to find, oh God, this sounds really, really deep, to find your inner confidence. God, I hate saying that, but I really do believe that confidence is key with most of these things. You need to be able to have the confidence to go with your creative ideas, because if you don't have any confidence, then you're not going to pursue or push forward your ideas about a creative project or a character. Like when you go into acting auditions and you need to make clear choices about what you've set out to do. Like, you've read a script, or you've read part of a script, and you need to go forward and be confident in your choices. If you don't have that confidence and you have that fear of actually being seen behind all of that, it doesn't matter how much creativity you're going to have, because you're not going to have that confidence to push it forward. So I think if there is a way that you can do that, not that I have the answer to that, and that's for you to probably decide how you want to do that. But hell, there's loads of podcasts on how to, build your confidence, and there's lots of self-help, but there's definitely loads of self-help books about that. And I think that is also it's the biggest key to being successful and to being creative, because you're not afraid to put yourself out there. And so I think there's a lot of amazingly talented people out there that might not have the confidence to go with it. And so if that's the case, build your confidence, girlies and boys. So yeah, just do it. Nike. No, that's awful. I've just been watching The Office. That's why I've been doing that. I don't even call it Nike. I call it Nike. Sorry. Same with, it's Adidas, not Adidas, by the way. Yeah, so we've gone completely off track. But yeah, I would say that is just the biggest thing. And it's something that I'm still learning right now. Even as I do podcasts week after week, I still get nervous. I still shy away from the microphone a bit, even though this is something that I genuinely really love doing and want to continue doing. So yeah, try and find that inner confidence, as wanky as that sounds. But anyway, thank you so much for letting me jabber on about all things creative. I hope this has helped. I hope it's helped. Even if it makes you feel like you can relate a bit more, that's kind of what the whole of this podcast is about. But also, yeah, I hope it really stimulates some creativity, or it pushes you to keep going, because you really can do it. Like 100% you can do this. We all just have a lull in our creativity, and it's knowing how to spark it back, how to push yourself when you feel a little bit down, or when things aren't, quite going your way with the industry. And it's just a way of keeping going. That's all we're trying to do. We're all just going to keep going until we land all of our amazing parts. So thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.